Okay, welcome everybody to Saratoga Whiskey Club tasting number 140 of the Saratoga Whiskey Club. We've done a lot this year. We're going to wrap it up with some pretty solid tastings to end the year, including part 3 of this journey, which I did send an email out about yesterday. It's going to be on November 9th, which is a Thursday. Because we have a conflict, but normally it would be on a Wednesday. But this is a really special series of tastings. Finally, we're able to travel again to these countries that we love so much and buy whiskey. I was in Japan earlier this year and brought back a bunch of bottles that we tasted shortly after. And then we've had now a few trips to Scotland between Holly and I, and I've been able to bring back some really fun bottles for us to taste. So it's been a number of years since we've been able to do this type of tasting with bottles that we actually hand carried back. It's a lot of fun. It's fun for me because it reminds me of where I just was at, but it's also really great for all of us because we get to taste stuff that we would not normally be able to taste here in the US. A couple of these bottles were bottles that I did buy here at the shop, just 2 of them this time. So it is nice to include some things that you can normally get, even though these 2 bottles aren't available anymore. But we'll taste them anyhow. So I'm gonna be sharing my screen quite a bit because I have some photos and videos and things like that from the trip. And I have a map as well, so we can kind of go back and look at the map and see where these places are. This tasting actually combines bottles from the last 2 trips that I made. So the first trip was a true coastal trip that started up in Orkney and ended all the way down in Campbelltown. So a lot of the bottles came from that trip, but then I did pick up 2 bottles on this latest trip, which was mostly in the Highlands, which will actually be the first 2 bottles that we're tasting tonight in this tasting. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up the map first so that we can kind of see where we're going to travel around. Hopefully everybody can see that okay. So the last tasting that we did both Scapa and Highland Park, which were up here in Orkney at the very top. Those were really great whiskeys. And then we came down and we tasted a Clynelish hand fill, which is right where it says Bordeaux right here. And then we kind of jumped over to the Speyside by accident and tasted some Blackadders, which were great. They just happened to be in the wrong area. And then we did end up with a Highland Park single cask, which was really fantastic as well. But tonight we're going to do a little crossover. We're going to actually start at Balblair. Let me see if I can blow up this map a tiny bit. Oh, here we go. Everything seems to be running a little bit slowly. I've got too many things open. Come on. What's going on? All right, there we go. So Balblair is just to the west of Tain. Tain is a small town where Glenmorangie is located. So Clynelish is up here where Bordeaux is. But Balblair is right here. It's number 20, probably really hard for you guys to see numbers, but it's just to the west of Tain. And Balblair is a really fun little distillery. And when I say little, it's still big, but it's little in comparison to some of the larger producers in Scotland. But it's a really cool place, and it became famous really because of a movie, of all things. I mean, it's been around a long time, but you know, it really kind of blew up in popularity. The movie The Angel's Share came out. I don't know how many of you all have seen that movie. It's a funny movie. It's a little bit rough on the edges. It's definitely got a Glasgow sense of humor in the movie, and quite a bit of language, Glaswegian language. But it's really a crazy movie where these kids basically figure out how to steal a very rare cask from Balblair. And so you get to see the distillery a little bit, you get to see the warehouse. You kind of, they're camped out on the hill over this distillery looking down on it. So you can kind of see it. And what they told us when we were there.
Spoiler alert.
Huh?
Spoiler alert. You're telling everybody the movie.
Oh, come on. I don't, you should still watch the movie. Don't listen to Shalom. It's not a spoiler alert. But what they told us at the distillery was that the movie was so popular that they ended up having to build a visitor center to handle the amount of people who came to the distillery that wanted to see it because of the movie. You definitely have to watch the movie. It's really funny. There's some pretty famous Scotch people in there as well. But it is a little raw at the beginning. Give it the first 30 minutes of kind of raw language and situations before you kind of get into it. But I'm going to read a little bit about Balblair. We can go ahead and actually start to taste this whiskey. You're going to see a video that I'm going to share of me actually filling this bottle. But this whiskey here, this was distilled in 2007. And so I just filled it, you know, a few weeks ago now. So it's a 16-year hand fill. They have a few notes on the side of the bottle. Again, I haven't tasted this yet, but the color is polished gold, and it is a very light gold color. That's one thing to definitely look at with these whiskeys. The aroma, toffee, apples, and peaches. I could kind of see that. And then the palate says sweet and lingering. So you can make that what you will, but I'm going to go ahead and pull up the pictures. We can show you Balblair here. I'm going to move my... yeah, okay, the Angel's Share. I'm going to make Shalom's naughty list. Yes, I always make Shalom's naughty list. All right, so here's Balblair. We got there and they were actually unloading barrels, which was pretty cool. It takes a little bit to load these videos. But right off the truck.
Charles, we're only seeing the map.
Oh, really? Okay, let me move the map then. Here, let me do this. You only saw the map?
Yeah, that's all we had.
Ah, that's not good. You see the
Now
video
we've got
now? All right. I don't think I've ever seen this before, where they're just literally dropping them out of a truck. They're empty, by the way. All right, there's that. So we started the tour. This is where they feed the grain into the distillery, where the truck pulls up, literally just drops it right into this hole. This was the old malting house. So again, a lot of these distilleries, they used to malt their own grain. You know, most of them don't do that anymore. They source it. It's malted for them. But whenever you see that pagoda kind of top on a building, that's typically because that's the malting house, where they would spread out the germinating grain, and then they would kiln dry it or peat smoke dry it to malt it. Oh, the ABV on this is 51.6. So this was actually quite a cold day. We actually have a couple of the group online with us tonight, Dave, Diane. They played golf that morning at Brora in the downpour and pelting hail, and it was quite
It was a
something.
lovely, glorious Scottish day.
Yeah, so glorious Scottish day. Probably the most brutal day of the trip in terms of weather. Yeah, I mean, we had some wind, but when it was really raining there, it was pretty bad. So by the time we got to the distillery, everybody was pretty cold. If you can see some of the faces in the background, you're going to see people shivering a little bit. But it was, we tried to warm up as quickly as we could in the different rooms that they have. So we're now inside the malting house. She's just showing one of the tools that they use to actually spread the grain along the floor of the malting house.
That's Helen.
And what's that?
That's
Yeah,
Helen.
that's Helen. Yeah, she's quite the character. And she, explained where the term monkey shoulder comes from, which is from that turning and tossing of the grain. It's pretty heavy, and when it's wet, it's not an easy thing to do. But then, everybody has this Porteous mill. Seems like 90% of the Scots all use this kind of mill. Doesn't break down. They have a really cool kind of logo. You guys remember what that meant, the logo? She told us, but I can't remember. It was some old, there were a lot of ancient people in the area. I think it was from back then, but I can't remember. But here's the mash tun. Pretty standard mash tun. That's one of the distillers. He let me peek my head in there while the group was kind of in the other room. I kind of snuck out. And then we go into the fermentation rooms. They did primarily use wooden washbacks for their fermentation. Some pretty cool stuff. This is the tool that they use to actually take samples out of the washbacks to check how it's going. And then these are some of the hydrometers that they use to keep up on the alcohol content. Here I am opening one of the washbacks. Just give it a second here. What do you guys think of this whiskey?
Good.
It's very good. It's got a nice fruitiness. It's got a spiciness that lingers all the way to the finish. Got a nice finish though, a nice warm finish. I do get the apples, maybe a little pear notes. I'm not sure about the peaches, but definitely some pears and spice, and very good.
Yeah, I'm definitely getting orchard fruit notes on this.
You're getting apples and vanilla. It's like caramel coated apples.
Now that I have a little on the palate, going back to the nose, we're on the first one, Jeff, the Balblair. I'm getting more apples on the nose after I've had it on the palate.
I added a couple of drops of water, and the apples came out a little bit more prominently for me, and even on the palate.
So here are the stills. They were actually working on them when we were there, so they weren't actually producing at the time, but they were pretty beat up. I mean, it's kind of interesting to see some of these distilleries, and they're all they have very different kind of routines and maintenance, and this one was like, I mean, pieces were falling off. This piece down here on the bottom was kind of hanging off, and there's quite a bit of this copper sediment stuff, this gook all over the place. And I mean, I liked that. I thought it was pretty cool. It definitely reminded me a little bit of a moonshine operation, just because it wasn't all polished and clean like some of the big distilleries are. But that just makes it what it is. We weren't originally going to see the still house. They had told me that it was going to be closed for repair, but I'm glad that they were able to let us peek in. You can kind of see the shape of the still. It's pretty wide. There's no bulb or reflux. They are going for a pretty oily kind of spirit with this, even though what we're drinking right now is not that. this is quite light and fruity and orchard. Even though Dan says it's very dense, it is. I mean, I think that comes from the age, probably more than anything. 16 years, you know, and it's definitely dropped in ABV over that time as well. So it's picked up more concentration. Pretty good. But they're also famous for their smokestack. Clynelish also has a similar smokestack there. Again, this isn't being used for anything. It's just kind of a symbol of the distillery. And then we did get to go into one of their warehouses. They were actually filling the barrels, which was pretty cool. You don't get to see that too often. You can see that big kind of gas station filler that he has there. Here he is actually filling. He was spilling quite a bit. We were all a little bit, you know, ashamed of his aim. His aim wasn't very good. He was jumping from barrel to barrel, and in between there was quite a bit of juice coming out. I was like, damn.
Maybe it sampled a little bit before he started filling.
Yeah. They were pretty happy in there, so I don't know, you know, they could have been a little tipper here and there. Yeah, so there's their warehouse, pretty cool spot. Oh, and then here's filling this bottle, so you guys can watch this. I'm going to read a little bit of the history. So it goes all the way back to oh, wait.
You don't want to be on camera, huh?
Actually, you know what would be fun? Why don't you listen to this banter? This is probably the worst banter I've ever had when filling a barrel. Hold on, let me turn the volume back on. These guys were making fun of me the whole time I'm filling this bottle, and I you know, this is pretty.
Just in case. Oh, you don't want to be on camera, huh?
Exactly.
Do this up, Charlie. Very expensive.
No pressure.
No pressure.
Wait, doesn't it look like it won't fit?
Start it up.
I think you did right enough.
That's a good way. Regulated.
Pace yourself, Charles. Pace yourself.
That DP.
Nice shot.
All right, so that's what we're drinking right now. The one guy said, "That's a boy." He called me a regulator. Oh my God, it was too funny. I was cracking up. But yeah, so the distillery goes back all the way to 1790. It was owned by a farm. You know, a lot of these places were originally farms, and you know, it's gone through its ups and downs. But it wasn't until April of 2019 that they started to release a core range of age statements. Prior to that, they were releasing these bottles that had the year that they were distilled, and it was really complicated trying to figure out how old these whiskeys were. So they really started to kind of come back together in 2019. And it was, what year was the movie, Shalom? It was like 2013 or something like that.
Yeah, something like that, 2012,
Yeah.
2013.
Yeah, so I think the movie, again, just really kind of made them get their act together. But that was filling the cask there. That's what we're drinking right now. It was not cheap. This was 140 pounds, which is about $170. So definitely not a cheap bottle. And then you sign it, and that's our group there. Everybody seemed a little happier after having a couple of sips of whiskey too. That always helps. So any last notes on this one? Anybody have any final yay or nay or anything like that?
It's good.
It's smooth.
Charles, did you mention what the ABV for this was?
Yeah, so this one's 51.6%.
Oh, higher than or lower than I would have guessed. Maybe it's all
Yeah.
that spice.
Yeah, so this one's actually the lowest of our group. That's why I started with it, actually. Because again, I don't want to ruin our palates too much with ABV.
And is that down to age, Charles?
Pretty much, yeah. 16 years. It could be higher than that typically, but maybe it was dropping for whatever reason. Some of these whiskeys tend to drop faster than others, but still a really solid ABV. Over 50% is always in my wheelhouse. That one would have been tough on the calendar though to guess the ABV. I think that would have been very difficult. Okay, you all good with that first one? All right, so now we're going to go back to the map real quick. Actually, we don't need to go back to the map. You all saw where Brora is. It's just up the road. So we did Clynelish in the last tasting. We're going to do one more Clynelish in this tasting. On this last trip, Shalom and I were able to run over to Elgin, which is a town in the northern Speyside, which is home to an independent bottler called Gordon and MacPhail. A lot of you know Gordon MacPhail, but for those of you who don't, Gordon MacPhail is one of the oldest, if not the oldest, independent bottler in Scotland. So they started out as grocers back in the day, all the way back 1895, so 19th century. And they were a grocery business. And then they eventually were buying casks, from distilleries and then selling them either as mostly as blends early on, and then later on as single casks. But it really wasn't until 1940, I did a little bit of history research, but it wasn't until 1940 that their 15 first fill sherry butts were filled at Glenlivet. So that's really, I think, when they started really getting into, which distillery it came from and actually, saying that information. Because I think before then it was just like Gordon MacPhail's grocery whiskey, you would go and buy a bottle of whatever they had. Because that's really when they started buying casks and started maturing in their own warehouses. So they definitely are one of the oldest independent bottlers. They do have actually a couple of bottlings now that are over 60 years old, which are pretty amazing that they even have stuff that old that's still above 40% ABV. But now they have a bunch of newer people. It's all still the same family. They're fourth generation now. Pretty great company. They own a lot of casks now. But they have a shop in Elgin, which is where they're based. And so Shalom and I were able to run over there, and I wasn't sure what I was going to look for or buy. I was kind of thinking of something to tie into the last tasting that we did, part one of this 3-part series. And I was looking at actually a Highland Park again, but then we got to talking to one of the people at the shop, and he said that this Clynelish that we're going to taste right now is actually one that you could only buy there at the shop. So I said, right away, that makes a lot of sense to do this one. So this is a 15-year Clynelish. This is in a refill bourbon barrel. It is a Gordon MacPhail exclusive. This is the first release. This is 15 years old, 57.4%. So we jumped a decent amount. Only 183 bottles of this cask. So definitely not a lot of yield. And on the front of the bottle, and this is it's part of their connoisseur's choice, which is always a really great level. It's their premium line at Gordon MacPhail. So they have what they call their Discovery series, which is kind of their entry level line. Those bottles are usually around $50, $60. Then they have their mid-level, and then the Connoisseur's Choice is like their top level. So this is one of their Connoisseur's Choice releases. But on the front of the label, it says Lemon aromas give way to banana and vanilla. Orange zest combines with flavors of toasted almonds and a hint of garden mint. A medium-bodied finish with subtle raspberry and oak. That's quite unusual. You don't
I
hear
definitely picked up the mint. That's one of the first things, and the vanilla, and definitely, yeah, some orange peel for me.
Charles, you remember how much you paid for this?
I believe it was like 120 pounds, somewhere in that range.
About 150 bucks.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I'm kind of partial to Clynelish, but I'm gonna tell you, this one for me is incredible. I love it.
It definitely has that Clynelish profile, which is always so lovely. Definitely getting the lemon.
I get pepper, Lucas. I know you get peeper, but that's okay.
Wow. Shalom's on fire tonight.
What's characteristic of Clynelish? Because I'm not as familiar with it.
Yeah, so Clynelish, typically you'll find a lot of Clynelish in a refill hogshead, bourbon hogshead. So most Clynelish are going to have like this citrusy note. So whether it's lemon or some other citrus, but then Clynelish is very well known for its waxiness. So it's kind of has this waxy quality to it. No peat. There's not going to be any smoke or anything like that with Clynelish. The majority of Clynelish is put into Johnny Walker. Actually, 95% of the production at the distillery is put into Johnny Walker, and only 5% is used towards like these special kind of single malts that we're getting to taste. So there is a standard Clynelish 14 year that you'll see at bars or sometimes in the US. We'll probably bring it in here at the shop because we love it so much, but it's really great. It's a fantastic 14 year. And I always look for independent bottlings of Clynelish because that's really where you're going to find them. And
Story has an incredible 19-year Clynelish, which I have. It's one of my favorite bottles like ever.
yeah, it's just a really tasty one. I don't know. It's one of my favorite distilleries. But again, not easy to find. In our last tasting, we did a hand fill that I filled at the distillery, similar to the Balblair, same process. And actually on this last trip, I went back and got another bottle for myself because it was so good. That was my one splurge, was going back and getting that hand fill.
Forget about saving some for later. I'm done with this.
Yeah, this is two really yummy whiskeys to start it off, Charles. This is pretty amazing.
I don't try to do that, Shalom.
So we have to figure that out like the advent calendar. We got to figure out what Charles is thinking. Don't ever do that.
Yeah, don't ever do that. It's good motto. Yeah, this is really tasty. Art was in the shop today, and he had a gift certificate. It was his birthday recently, and he bought our last Connoisseur's Choice Gordon MacPhail. It was a Glen Talkers. But yeah, they're getting hard to come by these days. So if you're ever in a shop and you see a Gordon MacPhail Connoisseur's Choice, you're pretty certain that it's going to be good if it's coming from a distillery that you like or in a region that you like. Hard to go wrong.
Funny, before water, I was getting so much banana in here. It was almost like a banana bomb. But now with water, not as much.
Okay, interesting.
I wasn't sure what that was until you said banana. I was like, oh, yeah, that is banana, right?
It's not really like a too ripe of a banana though. It's kind of a green, not green, but it's not like a full blown tropical I'm getting more citrus. I mean, I get a little of that banana note, but the lemon in the front really kind of overpowers the banana to me a little bit. I mean, I get it, but it's definitely vanilla, definitely the orange and the lemon. And then some people got the mint. I got a tiny bit of the mint. Did anybody get raspberry? I didn't get any raspberry. That's a tough one to get. I don't know how you actually pick out raspberry, but
I mean, it was a hint of vanilla that I got also in this. The mint that was one of the first things I thought when I first sipped.
that's really good. Oh my goodness. I hate Scotland. Too many good whiskeys. Holly was at Balbini today. They were doing a dram at the Craigellachie Bridge tonight with songs and all that. I mean, doesn't get much better than that, let me tell you. All right, so everybody good with Clynelish? I don't want to move too quickly. The people are still enjoying themselves. Just let me know, yay, nay. Silence.
Good, delicious.
Delicious, Jim says delicious. You don't have to finish these either. You can go back and, you know, it's kind of hard not to finish that one though.
Yeah, really.
All right, so how about I do this? Since some people might be still finishing that one. Let me share my screen again. I'll show you the map again and where we're heading next. All right, so just to recap, Clynelish is right here, where the cursor is, where Bordeaux is. Balblair is right here. So on the coastal trip, which was the first trip that I did, we went to Clynelish, and we actually stayed in Dornoch, which is a great little town. And then the following morning, we went to visit the battlefield of Culloden. And then we drove that whole day, pretty much, from Inverness. We went up this way, came down this road, and went all the way to Skye. So Skye is all the way here on the left, quite a ways. So that was a good 3-hour drive, I want to say. It's quite a ways. We did stop for lunch, which was good, right around here. And then we finished up. And so in Skye, there are 2 distilleries now. There is Talisker, which is what we're going to be tasting next, which is way out here on the left. And then there's Torabeg, which is down here, which is number 64, which we don't have a lot in the States. We had the first release from Torabeg, and we actually had that in the shop for a while, but there wasn't a lot. It kind of went away. But then over here, across this little channel is the island of Raasay. So some of you've had Raasay, we've had that in the shop. So they're right over here. And then if you go way up north of Skye, is the Isle of Harris. And there's whiskey actually coming out of Harris now. They just released their first release as well. And actually, I saw some people trying it this last week. So that's pretty exciting. A lot of these distilleries, these newer distilleries, are coming out with their first releases. You know, we had Raasay, Torabeg, and Harris all recently. And really tasty. Everything that I've had has been really good so far. But we're going to focus on Talisker. This is a really special bottle. Actually, I'm going to stop the share and I'm going to go back to pictures here. See if I can do that. Let's see here. Let me find these pictures. That was earlier on. There's Talisker. All right. There's Clynelish. Okay. Oh yeah, I can show you some pictures as we. This is as we were heading to, or when we were on Skye. This was right outside our hotel. we had this little kind of lock lagoon area with a bunch of sheep. Really beautiful area. Oh my God, sky is just, it's magical. Just the difference in scenery from one section to the other. And then of course, driving with the sheep. Shalom has a classic video. I don't have the one where they're making out, but Shalom has the one where they're doing it right in front of our van, which
This
is
guy's right in front of me.
Yeah, it's like the Beatles song, "Why Don't We Do It in the Road?"
yeah.
Diane, the commentary by Diane on that is also pretty entertaining.
Yeah, it's actually a really great video. This is one of our stops. This was actually before we had lunch and before we went to Talisker. So it's just beautiful. It's just really a really spectacular place. But here's Talisker. I have quite a few videos. You just have to kind of keep in mind that they take a little bit to load. But what we're going to be drinking is a hand fill, and you'll actually see the video of it, but it's a 9-year hand fill. It's matured in Bordeaux barrels. So red wine, Bordeaux, pretty special. Shalom got a bottle as well. This one was distilled in, well, actually it doesn't say when the year it was distilled, but it's 60.2%. So it's got some alcohol on it for sure. But this is the distillery. We'll kind of walk you through the distillery a little bit. They've rebranded themselves. Kind of all of the Diageo distilleries have kind of undergone this new look, which is very much a commercial kind of Johnny Walker look. Talisker does not go into Johnny Walker, however, even though it is one of the Diageo brands. Here's Shalom eating a brick of peat, thinking he was funny again, which, you know, sometimes he is funny, but let's see here. There's the old Porteous Mill. Seen that before. Here's a video of somebody's feet. But this is leading into the mash tun, really large mash tun. You know, when you get to these Diageo distilleries, especially some of the bigger ones, you just, some of these are massive, like Clynelish and Talisker, both very large mash tuns. And then this is going into the fermentation room. They use both wood and stainless steel at Talisker. These were the wooden ones. But then in the back, there was some stainless steel. Some old ones there. And then this is going into the still house. The still house is actually quite beautiful. I really like this still house at Talisker. You know, you get to walk kind of along this catwalk. And you can see the necks of these are fairly long, of the spirit stills. Those are the wash stills on the left. The spirit stills are, or excuse me, wash stills are on the right, the larger ones, and the spirit stills were on the left. But fairly large wash stills. So they have 2 wash stills and 3 spirit stills. They do use worm tubs. So outside of the wall, you see the line arm or the edge of that arm of the still going straight out. That goes into a worm tub. So a different kind of condensation, which actually adds and makes it a little bit more of a kind of oily texture for the whiskey. These are the wash stills. And they were actually in production at the time, so we couldn't actually walk. Last time I was there, they weren't in production. You could walk outside and see the worm tubs, but since they were running, they didn't want people getting close to that. So here's the tasting room. So they've kind of rebranded everything. It's very kind of Diageo. It's nice, you know, it was a nice tour, for sure. We got to taste some decent whiskey too. The Port Ree is really great. If you ever see that when you're traveling around, they don't have it in the States, but they have it in Canada, and then it's all over Europe and Scotland, of course. But that's a really beautiful Talisker in port barrels. And the Parlay is a newer release. It's a travel exclusive release, which was actually quite nice too. And then here's filling the barrel now, or the bottle. The lady got a little panicked. It's kind of funny. They're all different. She thought I was going to overflow this bottle, and she kind of panicked a little bit. It was pretty funny. I wasn't worried too much, but she seemed quite worried because I was going too fast. Here we go. And I do have a kind of crazy look in my face there when I do this. And you can see it's going really fast. But then I slowed it down, and she calmed down a little bit. Oh, 130 pounds. I can see that right on there. But this is a rejuvenated red wine cask. Do I have any Talisker in the shop? At the moment, no, we don't. And it's really pretty rare that we have ever had a Talisker. I don't know if we actually have ever had a Talisker in the shop, to tell you the truth. Can't remember if we had an independent bottling. We might have had an independent bottling at one point of a Talisker, but yeah, we don't have any right now. So there we go. There's our names. There's Saratoga Whiskey Club, and then Shalom's bottle as well underneath there. And there's our group. So what do you guys think of this one?
It's very coastal. You get that sea saltiness, definitely that smoke. It's got this nice sweetness and spicy thing going on. Very complex. I love Talisker, and this doesn't disappoint.
Yeah, this is actually, I found this to be less smoky and less briny than most Taliskers. I thought maybe the red wine cask had some influence. I got like raspberries and leather on the nose. To me, the palate, maybe it's because of where we were, but I feel like it's like a nice warm hug with a glass of earthy red wine in my hand.
Good description. Definitely, I have to agree with all of that. But it has this leatheriness, this coastalness, the salinity is there, and that subtle smoke. Yeah, it's definitely not as smoky as the Talisker 10. That I can tell you.
Yeah, the Talisker 10 is, I mean, obviously that's kind of the one most people know, or the Storm. You know, those can be a little overwhelming at times. You know, it depends what your level of preference is for peat and salinity and all of that. Definitely those are definitely maritime. You know, those are like you're getting pelted by the seashore. However, you know, none of these are matured on the coast, which, you know, I always found that kind of strange. Like, you know, where is this maritime quality coming from if it's actually not being influenced by maturation and sea air and all of that? You know, Diageo sends this whiskey down to Glasgow to sit in warehouses. So it's just, I don't know, it's always kind of boggled my mind. I mean, you know, we always think, oh, Talisker, it's just this beautiful location, which it is. And it must be the location that's creating this incredible flavor profile. But if they're truly maturing down in Glasgow, there's no maritime influence coming from Glasgow. So I don't know. It's
yeah, I'll tell you, the sweetness also gives it a nice balance with the peatiness too. Got a nice sweet finish.
Yeah, there's always that beautiful balance or combination, right? I mean, anytime you have a peated malt, whether it's in port, even in sherry or red wine, it works really, really well. Just, I don't know. It seems to me it works a lot better than unpeated malt, where the malt can be drowned out by red wine or sherry or whatever.
Charles, what did you say the ABV was?
60.2.
Oh,
Yeah, I think for this one, honestly, turning the volume down on the peat a little bit did let all those other almost supplementary flavors, I'll call them, come up. And I think the balance is just like incredible because they did that. It's a really fantastic dram.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, yeah, I was lucky enough, Steve, who is sitting there next to Dennis, Steve and we managed to get a little nip of this at the distillery when we were there, and I thought, oh my God, this is just spectacular.
Yeah, I got a bottle too. I like the port tree better.
Well, it's sweeter.
Yeah, I thought it was much better. Yeah, and of course, you know how I feel about peated whiskeys, so.
The fact that you even like the port tree is just a radical departure from your past.
It's true. It's good though. That's what we like to. We're not trying to convert, but it's always nice to just be appreciative, maybe, of these things, and whether or not it's in your profile, it's always great to find something that you like in a different style. I don't know. It kind of just helps expand the range, I guess. I think the challenge, especially in the store, when we have people who come in and they've had a bad Scotch experience and they don't want to try Scotch, it usually comes down to peat. They've had something that was just too peaty, and it didn't work. And it makes sense. I mean, it's not an easy thing to naturally appreciate or love. For a lot of us, including myself, it took a while until I was really into the peat. And actually, Talisker was the reason. Talisker 10 was a gift that my mom gave to me a long time ago. Somebody had recommended it to her because she didn't know anything about whiskey, and so I had the Oban 14 was my first kind of love. That was my first whiskey that I really loved. And then I had this Talisker 10, and that Talisker 10 sat on my shelf for well over a year. And I would just have a tiny bit, and I'd be like, oh God, this is crazy. And I would go back to it, and I kept going back to it. And eventually I was like, all right, this is actually pretty darn good. I just needed to kind of get there, and but if you've had, Ardbeg 10 as your first peated whiskey, or Lefroy 10, and you're just like blown away by an ashtray in your mouth, I get it. It's not easy to just naturally accept that or want to drink that.
It's with Lagavulin 16. Somebody gave me a bottle and it just kind of sat there, and I really wasn't into it. I just really didn't like it. And then, and I think when I joined the club, that's when I started again with the peated whiskeys. Now I've come so far on the other side that this one is almost not enough peat. It's like the first thing I want to do when I go to 9 Maple is see if they got Octomore.
Which they do.
I had Talisker Storm as one of my first scotches I've ever had.
Yep.
And it was just like inhaling a campfire. So it was like trying to get where's my peat tolerance?
Well,
I love this one.
The smoke with Talisker is quite different than the smoke from Isla. You get it's not as seaweed, and like it's not as first aid kit as Isla can be, or medicinal. Talisker's got more of that heather it's kind of an in-between of Highland Park and Isla, right? So it's got the coastal elements of Isla, and it's got more of the heather notes of Highland Park. And it's kind of that beautiful balance in between, which I also find with our next couple of whiskeys from Ardnamurchan. They as well are not going crazy with the peat. It's kind of a combination of peated and unpeated malt. what they're doing, which is really nice. It's actually very approachable for a lot of people. And actually the standard Ardnamurchan release that we have in the shop right now, it's got to be one of my favorite value bottles that we have. I mean, it's $65. It's a beautiful, delicious whiskey. And they're just starting to blow up. So it's really kind of fun to see that. But all right, so we'll do Ardnamurchan next. Let me show you on the map first where it is. I won't show you the pictures yet. We'll just look at the map first. We can taste the first dram, and then I can show you the pictures, and then we can taste the second dram. How does that work? Okay, so back up here, we're at Skye. Talisker is way up here to the left. Now, to get to Ardnamurchan, it's not an easy task. You have to leave pretty early in the morning to catch a ferry over here at Armadale. The ferry was, I believe, at 8:30, or maybe it was even 8 o'clock. It was pretty early. Might have been 8 o'clock. And so we left we were staying even further than Talisker. We were way up. We were like way up here where the cursor is. So we had quite a drive just to get to Armadale by 8 o'clock to catch this 30-minute ferry over to Mallaig or Mallaig. I don't know how you say that. But then the road from Mallaig to Ardnamurchan. So this peninsula right here is the Ardnamurchan Peninsula. But the road going from here down here and over, it's something else. I mean, it's all single track. You know, lots of traffic. So there's occasionally big trucks coming at you, and it's a little hairy. And we had to get to Ardnamurchan, I think, by 10 o'clock or 10:30. And we did a really cool kind of VIP experience there. But it's a really great distillery if you can get to. Now we met a couple of people that work there, both really great. One of them is Jenny. She's kind of like their main operations manager. She does their marketing. She does lots of things for the distillery. I've been following her ever since our trip, and she's all over the place. She's at whiskey shows all over the world. She's truly representing and connecting with as many whiskey people as possible for the brand. And she's really a wonderful person. And then the other person was from the US, this guy named Carl. It's actually from the New Hampshire area. And he now works for Ardnamurchan, but he lives in Edinburgh. And so to go from Edinburgh all the way to the Ardnamurchan Peninsula is not the easiest of drives. And he does that a couple times a month. So bless him for doing that. But he lives in Edinburgh. But most of the farmland where they get their barley is coming from this area kind of to the west, or excuse me, east, northeast of Edinburgh. So they actually have like offices where their farmers are located, so they can actually be vigilant of their crop as well. So that's over towards St. Andrews, kind of in this area here, which this whole area kind of north and east of Edinburgh is really the breadbasket of Scotland. That's where a lot of the barley is grown, or in the lowlands. But if you're talking single malt, most of the barley is grown in this area. A lot of the grain is grown in the lowlands. But yeah, so this is the Ardnamurchan Peninsula. There's not much else on the peninsula besides some really nice homes. It was actually kind of a playground area of some wealthy people in Scotland. They own a lot of the homes in that area. But we're having the first dram that we're having is actually pretty special. This was oh shoot, somebody needs the link. That was a long time ago. I haven't looked at my phone. Let me send this email out real quick. That's not good.
We'll start drinking while you're doing that.
Everybody got the link, right? For the
Yeah, no problem, as usual.
Okay.
Is anybody getting a nuttiness on the nose? I'm getting some nuts, you know.
Charles, if we're here, we got the link.
All right. I gotta look up, let me just look up something really quick here.
Vinny, to answer your question, I mean, kind of a little bit, but honestly, on the nose, I'm kind of having to really dig under the alcohol to get many notes, really. I think the palate kind of presents itself a lot better, but the nose.
I agree, Jeff. I'm not getting much. I mean, I think maybe because the Talisker is so potent, it's kind of screwed up my nose. But
Yeah,
I'm getting walnuts on the palate. I mean, when you say nuts, I'm getting because it's a kind of a rich, oily, almost coffee-ish kind of nut, like walnuts.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Walnuts. That was on my mind. Getting that more on the palate. It just came through, but you're right. There's a lot of alcohol, but I just picked it out. And that nuttiness, there's a mintiness on the palate too.
All right, let me explain what we're drinking real quick. So the Carl, who was one of the people that took us around the distillery, and Connell, who's their main brand ambassador, who I've met before a couple of times, they came to the US really shortly after we were there in Scotland. And they did what they called their Ardnamurchan tour of, mostly the Northeast. They made it to DC, I believe, and I believe I went to Chicago as well. But this bottling, or this bottle that we're tasting, was made for that tour, was made for their visit to the United States. It's a US exclusive, so this was only released in the United States. We got a few bottles. We're actually getting 2 more bottles tomorrow, and that'll be it. That was the last 2 bottles that are available. There's only 900 bottles in the US, so a very limited release. It is cask strength. It's 57.8%. It's a combination of peated and unpeated malt in highly active and very specially selected Oloroso and Pedro Jimenez casks, specifically for this bottling. So there's no age statement on this. I have not tasted this yet, so this is my first go at it. But
what you said, you have some in the shop, or
tomorrow we're getting 2 more bottles, but that's it. That's the last 2 bottles that the distributor had. I reached out the other day, asked him if he had any left, and he said there were 2 bottles, and I said I'll take them. So they should be coming tomorrow.
And what's the customer price on these?
It's around 90. I can't remember exactly.
What's the Shalom price?
It's priceless.
150, I think.
Thanks, Chad.
Let me see if I can find it.
Can be. Nope, I'm riding along with somebody else.
95.99. So we should be getting 2 more bottles of this tomorrow.
We do want to read together.
If anybody here wants one of those,
just check
let me
that.
know.
I'll come check on you when I'm done, okay?
And I'll hold them for you. But yeah, 2 more are available.
Count me as one, Charles.
The peat is very subtle, that I gotta say.
You want one, Chad? Okay, you got one.
I'll take one.
Who was that?
Steve.
Oh, all right, Steve. All right, they're gone.
Thank you.
Yep.
There's a lot of coffee notes on the nose and the palate to go along with the walnuts.
Yeah, I'm getting a lot of coffee too. Yeah.
It's really nice. It's not as potent as the ones we had in terms of flavor notes. It's a little more subtle, but it's good.
It's subtle, but the palate does have a really deep richness to it. And I didn't know if you guys also thought that it was a pretty oily mouthfeel. I thought it was pretty mouth coating to me with a pretty long finish.
Agreed.
Yeah. Really good.
Brad is just joining us. I feel really bad. Brad, oh, he's not there yet.
His birthday was this week, so wish him a
I
happy
know,
birthday.
I really feel bad. Sorry, Brad. You didn't get the link?
No. I don't know. I checked my email and I didn't see it. I don't know if it got caught in a filter or something, but
Oh,
yeah,
shoot. I just saw your email. I feel horrible. We're on
I should
the
have checked earlier.
we're on the Ardnamurchan tour bottle right now.
All Charles's emails are non-chill filtered.
All right,
Are
hold
we
on.
sure? Are we sure about that?
I'm gonna bring up some photos of Ardnamurchan. Let me see here. All right, here we go. Oh, actually, yeah. So we did just to wrap up Talisker. Just up the hill is the oyster shed. That's our bottle right there, next to a plate full of delicious stuff.
That looks amazing.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I didn't open our bottle. I just stared at it while I ate the oysters, so I couldn't get the full experience. But last time I was there, I had a Talisker 10, and that was actually perfect for the oysters. Talisker in general is, whatever Talisker it is perfect with oysters. All right, so here's Ardnamurchan. Let's go through this a little bit. Actually, that's just a video of the sign. So they have these, they're one of those really great, it's a whole new wave of distillation now in Scotland where, you know, everybody's into sustainability and, you know, reusing, recycling, everything, right? So Ardnamurchan is really one of the leaders with this. They're owned by Adelphi, which actually the last whiskey we're having tonight is an Adelphi independent bottling. They're an independent bottler. So we see that actually with quite a few distilleries like Signatory and Edgedour, they're combined. Gordon MacPhail is with, is it Ben Romack? You know, there's a lot of connections. You have Cadenheads with Springbank. You know, there's a lot of kind of crossover with independent bottlings companies and distilleries. But if the plans for the distillery were submitted in 2011, approved in 2012, construction began in 2013. So it's only 10 years old, actually completed in 2014. So they're less than 10 years old when they started with production. And the first release, which was their 3-year mark, was 2017. So very, very young distillery. As of 2020, the distillery had filled over 10,000 barrels. But that's not a lot when compared to, you know, some of the larger distilleries. But they're powered by renewable energy, both by hydroelectric power and by a large biomass boiler. And actually, when we were walking here past the malt bins, she was showing us some of the biomass part where they use recycled tree material, and the boiler provides heat to the distillery and the floor maltings as well. They draw water from the springs above the distillery at the Glenmore River. So everything is, you know, they're trying to be as sustainable as possible. But let's just go quickly here. We have some pretty cool videos of some of the barrels and of Shalom actually stenciling a barrel. So we went in here. We started out in their warehouse. They actually have a really interesting situation with their warehouse. They have multiple floors. It's not something that's extremely common in Scotland where you see, or at least allowed up into multiple floors. This was the first time that I had actually been upstairs in a distillery's warehouse before. Let's get to the stenciling here. This is where they were filling the barrels. This is one of the guys stenciling, but let's get to Shalom stenciling. How about that? Here's
Oh,
Shalom.
no.
Yeah, here's Shalom stenciling. I don't know if he's ever seen this video, so it
I have, yeah,
might be a little embarrassing.
yeah.
He picked the wrong year by accident. He didn't realize it, but
No. It's just, I was very thorough.
I kept the volume off because there's a lot of banter. Probably better that way. All right, enough of that. Yeah, so more barrels. Let's get to the distillery.
That was like wax on, wax off.
Very good. They almost hired him. So this is the upstairs part. So this is kind of cool.
Charles,
Yeah,
I noticed you jumped past the Glenfarclas barrel.
I did. Should I go back to that?
Yes,
What was the history on that again?
that was the barrel that they gave them for the first bottling.
Oh, there you go. Okay. So there it is, July 2014 from Glenfarclas. Pretty awesome. I mean, Glenfarclas is awesome. We all know that for sure. All right, so let's get to the distillery itself. So here we go. This is going up the stairs to the mash tun and to the washbacks. That's the mash tun right there. And then those are the fermentation tanks, all in the same room. They do actually have a small malting floor. Let's see here. I think I just took, that's just another video. Let me show you the malting floor. All right, here's the mash tun. That's Jenny. She's wonderful. She's a great ambassador. And then they actually have this malt floor, which they're not doing a lot of their own floor malting yet, but it is part of their plan. So they will actually do their own. This was kind of showed to us in secret. They didn't even want people to actually see that. They are on YouTube now, so people are going to see it. But there's the washbacks. Here are their stills. They do have bulbs on that one there. This is kind of their still house. Kind of get a sense of it walking in. And then their spirit safe right there. The guy on the left there was one of the distillers. Really nice guy. He'd been there a while. And then, yeah, we went to the tasting. And actually, this bottle is going to be our next one, not the tour bottling, but the one after the tour bottling. And I haven't tasted that yet. I was driving, so they were pouring little driver's drams for me, and I still haven't tasted it yet. I have a collection of these samples from driving. There's Jenny in the tasting room, and there's our group outside. So I'm gonna stop the share here, finish up our tour bottling. What do you guys think of the tour bottling? Yeah, some people, yeah. I see some thumbs up. Yeah. I definitely get those coffee notes a lot. Kind of a, oh shoot. It's almost like a molasses coffee note. Like it's a, it's almost like a candy like a you know, a candy that has coffee in it, or that's really good though. Nice lingering aftertaste.
They're doing great stuff with some very young whiskeys.
Yeah, I mean, so I don't know if you guys remember, some of you might have been in the tasting, but when I was there in 2019, I brought back a bottle that was a warehouse bottling. It wasn't old enough to be called whiskey yet. It was 2.5 years old. And we tasted it in one of our club tastings. and everybody was like, wow, this is really good. I mean, it was straight out of the barrel. It was
It's
not.
very, very impressive for a young whiskey. It's got that nuttiness, some little walnuts going on there. Just a kiss of peat. It's just got a really nice, very, very nice. I gotta say, hasn't been one bad one in the batch.
Hard to go wrong with their stuff, I have to say. All right, so this one was a special bottle. This next one was a special bottle that we picked up. This is exclusively for the distillery's visitor center. So this is not something you're going to find outside of the distillery. This is cask number 592. This is first fill American oak, ex-bourbon, and then it's finished in a rum barrel. So this is going to be a rum cask finish, Ardnamurchan. This is 60.4%. So we're back up into the 60 range with this. I have not tried this one yet. You guys had it at the tasting center.
And I loved it then. I'm going to see if I still love it. I'm sure I will.
Charles, did you say the age for either of these Ardnamurchans? I don't remember.
So there's not an age statement on either one of these bottles.
No, this one does. This one's a 5-year.
Oh, it is? Well,
Yeah.
it doesn't, unless you scan it, I guess, on the back.
Yeah, I went to the barcode
Okay.
and it's 5 years.
Okay. Well, there you go. Thank you, Sean.
I mean, it's amazing. For 5 years, it is amazing.
So who's getting rum? Anybody?
There's a little bit sugary stuff on the nose. I don't get it much other than on the nose.
Yeah, I get it on the nose as well.
I was going to say, before you even said it, I got it on the nose, but I can't taste it that much.
I mean, you know, sometimes rum has like that fusel oil kind of note, you know, the funkiness, and that's definitely on the nose. I get a little bit of that on the nose.
The palate's very buttery. Maybe that's that same fusel stuff, but it's buttery vanilla is what I got for the rest of it, and just a hint of peat on the palate.
It has that kind of like when you smell a rum, almost that leathery sulfuriness that you get from molasses. That's maybe.
The rum does come through on the palate.
You're getting it on the palate?
On like the third or fourth sip, it took a little while. Keep it in your mouth a little longer.
Actually, when I added water and it took away some of the alcohol, I could definitely pick up the rum on that.
You got to let it sit on your palate for a while.
Yeah. Very good. Excellent.
Here, I'm going to pull up the. Oh, there. I was hoping they might say where the rum is from, but they don't.
I'm just impressed that such a young distillery making such incredibly high quality product with, you know, so few years behind it.
If I had to pick a word to describe the palate on this one, I would say juicy.
Do you remember, Shalom, what they said was the percentage of peated and unpeated malt that they used? So like 60-40 or something like that?
Yeah, no, I don't know. I mean, I don't remember at all. This one tastes peatier than the other one, which is interesting. I don't know. Like the ArdnAmerica tour bottle seemed less peaty than this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still peat on the palate, and I just finished it. I'm still tasting the peat.
Yeah. And I got a handfill there. I don't know. I don't think I've opened it yet, though.
That was a sherry, I believe, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. I think it's a PX. I can look up my notes. I haven't tasted that one yet. I'm looking forward to that. I just figured all the other stuff we tried, they were so amazing.
Well, so some of you remember if you were at Drams for Fams this year in May or June, I think it was June this year. We had the Ardnamurchan at our table, and it ended up being the one bottle that was consumed the most. So that says something when you have 25 to 30 bottles on the table and one of them is almost empty. It definitely it proves its worth just by that alone.
Yeah, so I just looked up the handful I got is a 6-year Oloroso.
Yeah, that should be really good.
And it's in an octave.
So an octave is a smaller barrel, for those of you who are wondering what that is. So there will be more concentration of sherry on that in shorter amount of time. So 6 years in an octave is a really long time, to tell you the truth. So that'll be interesting to see how that tastes whenever Shalom opens that and shares it with the club. Oh wait.
Well, when Lucas comes over to celebrate his birthday, well, that'll be 6 years towards his age. Sláinte.
Well, then you only need another 10-year-old whiskey. You'd be good.
No, you need a -1.
Lucas is like the Rodney Dangerfield of our group. He gets no respect. No respect. All right.
Hey Charles, did you say what this was? This finished in anything? Because it's got a pretty light color, but it's
Rum.
the body's just so incredible.
It was finished in a rum barrel.
Oh, that's right. Thank you.
Yep. One of the things they do on their bottles, it's kind of weird. It's good and bad. They have this, it's a see-through kind of window on the side. You know, the bottles are beautiful. I really like the bottle, but it's a see-through window, so you know how much whiskey is still in there. But when you get to the bottom of the window, you can't tell like what's in there. It's like Octomore. It's becomes a mystery what's left in your bottle. But I do really like their stuff, I have to say. They're probably the most exciting newer distillery that I am a fan of at this point, which is pretty great. Okay. You all good with that? Are we good? We still moving?
Charles, one more question. You probably already said it, but what's their oldest spirit? How long have they been around?
Well, so 2014 was when they started producing. So we're maybe a 9-year.
Okay.
I don't think they've released a 9-year at this point, but all right. So
hey Charles,
yeah.
Can we get them in the US, or are they like, what's their availability? I've never heard of them before, and this is interesting.
Yeah, so we have their core release bottling in the shop, which again is only $64.99, which is a steal for what it is. It's 46 or 48%, I believe, but it's really, really tasty. But outside of that first core release, it's really kind of limited offerings, which at this point there's nothing besides this tour bottle that we tasted. I'm sure there will be something coming down the pike, but it's hard to know what that will be. But for now, they're just sticking to their core expression to kind of get known in the US. But yeah, I'm sure there will be some single casks coming to the US as well. It's just hard to say when or what they're going to be, or if we can even get them. You know, that's kind of the challenge with Ardnamurchan is when they come to the US, it goes to the big cities first. So if New York City and and DC and Chicago leave us some, then we get some. You know, it's kind of how it works. And unfortunately,
Yeah, so I cheat a little bit. I'm actually in Boston.
yeah, yeah. So
Maybe I can find it.
But you know what? I don't know if Ardnamurchan. I know they did actually go up to Norfolk Wine and Spirits to do part of their tour there. But they didn't actually get to Boston. But I'm sure that some of the stores there sell the core line bottle.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yep. All right, so we're going to move on to the last bottle of the night. This is from Adelphi. This is one of their independent bottles. Sometimes they release bottlings that don't have the distillery name on it, and this is one of those cases. When Shalom and I were actually up in Scotland a few weeks ago, we did, or I don't know if Shalom did, but I did taste a couple of other Adelphi expressions, and typically almost everything that I've had has been really, really great. They get some really amazing barrels that they bottle. They're very hard to get. We got our first Adelphi bottlings in the shop just a few weeks ago. In the blink of an eye, they were gone, except for the Kalila. We still have 1 or 2 bottles of the Kalila left, which is pretty surprising. But this one that we're drinking tonight, I knew it was going to be gone within a day or two of when we received it. So I bought a bottle for the club because it fit also this kind of tasting that we're doing tonight. So this one is called the Breath of the Isles. But again, it doesn't say what island it's from, but I do know that it's not from Isla. So we can kind of maybe taste it and decide where it might be from. I really don't know. It could be up north. It could be Highland Park, or it could be Arn. Some people have said that it might be Arn, or it could be Tobermory or Mull or Lechic. I don't know.
So I'm not getting any peat on the nose, so I don't think it's Lechic or Highland Park.
So you're not getting any peat on the nose? I have not tasted this, so I have not even smelled it. This is 57.1%. It is a 16-year-old single malt.
Yeah, I'm not getting.
Shalom. That Hazelburn did not have peat on it, and it was from Springbank.
Right, but that's not an island, right? So this is from an island.
Oh, okay.
You know what this is probably from? I'm going to guess.
It could be Tobermory. I'm thinking it's Arn.
I'm thinking it's Arn.
Yeah, I think it's Arn.
Yep.
So Charles, why would they be so opaque about the origins of the whiskey?
Sometimes they do a series where the series itself is concealing the identity of the distillery, and I think that's the case with this one. I don't think Arn in general, if this is Arn, I don't think Arn in general is opposed to having their name put on a bottling. But I know this series, which they've done other ones with the Isles. This one's called the Breath of the Isles. I can't remember what the other ones were called. I don't think they like to disclose where it's from. It's more of like not necessarily a guessing game, but it's supposed to show you that the Isles are vastly different in flavor profiles, right? So you can't just put one profile on an island. With Talisker, we know everything's pretty much peaty, but when you go to Mull and you have Tobermory or Lechic, one is peated and one's not. And when you go now to Arn, they have Arn and Lag, one's peated and one's not. So I think what they're trying to show you, who knows? Maybe this is Scapa of all things. It could be that as well, because Scapa is not peated and it's on an island. But if I were to guess, I would guess Arn just based off of my initial nose, but I haven't tasted it yet.
The palate could be it could be Scapa. The nose I'm getting honey, the palate I'm getting apples.
I'm getting more of a citrus note, almost like an orange. From me. And vanilla.
I'm getting that on the finish.
Yeah, yeah, it's building on the finish like an orange peel almost.
I got like a really strong, almost like a peach candy, like right up front when I took a sip.
Had I known what this one tasted like, I wouldn't have put this one last. I figured it was peated, but again, I hadn't tasted it before, so
yeah, definitely not any peat. That's
no.
for sure.
I like it being last. It's like dessert.
Yeah, actually, it's like a peach cobbler in a way.
Yeah, I'm getting the peach now on the palate as it builds.
That's really good. Oh my God.
It is.
So you got a bottle of this, right, Chad?
No, I don't.
Oh, somebody. Oh, maybe it was Todd. Yeah, Todd, who's online. He's not. His face isn't online, but he bought one of these. Yep, there he goes in the chat room. This is a good bottle, Todd. So keep that in mind when you guys see Adelphi coming to our area. In general, they're very good. Now, we were in Inverness a couple weeks ago, and I tasted one from Clynelish after I had a nice Ben Riach, both Adelphi bottlings. The Clynelish didn't do it for me, and I really like Clynelish, so I don't know. I'm not gonna judge Adelphi on one bottle that I didn't really like, but in general, I've had a lot of really good ones. So
yeah, about 5 or 6 years ago, I had an amazing Adelphi Colila that was one of the best whiskeys I've ever had.
Yeah. So it's definitely a really good independent bottler. And we do have Kalila still. So actually, I do like ending with this. This is kind of nice.
Would the ABV come in at here?
57.1.
Boy, it doesn't taste that high.
No, it's very eminently drinkable, quaffable. What's the price on this one, Charles?
No, it was over $100. Let's see here. Oops. Just had it. Hold on. This one was $135.99. But again, for a 16-year single cask, single malt, that's a really good price.
Yep.
At cask strength.
67.1?
57.
Oh, 57. Okay. I was really worried that this was a super dangerous whiskey.
No, that's our 15-year light whiskey in the shop at 68%. That's super dangerous.
Oh yeah, the strawberry cream on that's like dessert.
Yeah. So just a little preview for the last part of this series, which will be on November 9th, Thursday. So we have 2 more hand fills, one of them from Oban, which is pretty rare to get a single cask Oban. They don't work with independent bottlers. You're really never going to see Oban in a single cask format. So the fact that they had a hand fill there was pretty exciting. So that'll be part of the tasting. On this last trip that I went on, Shalom and I had the opportunity when the group was playing golf to go down to Glenkinchie, which is in the lowlands. I wasn't initially going to use the lowlands as part of the final part of this series, but since we were there and we got a really great hand fill from Glenkinchie, we're going to do that, which is really great. And then we have a really fantastic bottling from Glen Scotia that we picked up at the distillery, which was a distillery exclusive. So that'll be a lot of fun. And then we have an allocated bottling from, it's from Campbelltown. So it's mostly going to be, you know, Springbank and Hazelburn. But there is a little bit of Glen Scotia as well. It's called Campbelltown Lock. That's an allocated bottle. And then I'm going to round it out with a couple of more bottles that I haven't figured out yet, but I will soon. But yeah, it's going to be another really, really great Scotland tasting to kind of wrap up this series and this journey that we've done from north to south. And I look forward next year to doing more of this. So, you know, whenever the travels happen, we'll definitely be bringing back some special bottles to taste alongside some bottles that we can get here in the US when they're available. But yeah, and we are in December, we are going to wrap up the year. I know that we have the calendar. A lot of people are doing the calendar, but we are going to do a pretty special Bruichladdich tasting in December, just because it's December and we're going to wrap up the year with a really great tasting. So, you know, be ready for that one. It'll be pretty impossible to taste the calendar dram that day if you don't taste it before that tasting. So, hint, hint, you know, you need to taste that first and then get blasted by peat, because there's going to be a lot of peat on that last tasting. But yeah, so that's it. We're going to wrap up. I got to run. I got to take my mom to the airport, and I got to, you know, drink a lot of water. I've only had small pours, so I'm pretty good to go at this point. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it. And everybody, I will see you soon. We're doing a great tasting next week at Henry Street. If you can make it, come join me. If not, I'll see you on the next club tasting, and I will talk to you soon. Enjoy.
All right, this was awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Charles.
All right, guys.
Fantastic tasting. Thanks.
All right,
Thanks,
see you
Charles.
soon.